Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Don't Praise the Machine. This is the Survivor's Guide to the Cultural Apocalypse, and today we're looking at the newest citizens of the digital wasteland, Generation Alpha, the oldest of whom turns 16 years old this year, if you can believe it. These are the kids who didn't just grow up with the internet, they were born directly into the feed. While millennials like John and myself were waiting for dial-up, and Gen Z was discovering Snapchat, Gen Alpha was the learning to swipe generation before they could speak. They aren't searching the internet, they're being fed the internet by an algorithm that knows them better than they know their own parents. We're talking about a generation that considers Skibidi toilet high art and views the real world as a slightly lower resolution version of Roblox. Are we looking at a new breed of digital entrepreneurs, or are we witnessing the first mass-scale experiment in algorithmic childhood? To help me navigate this brave new world of the iPad kids, I'm going to need the help of a man who is so gentle when it comes to parenting that I've actually seen him apologize to a Roomba for tipping it over, just in case it had big feelings about the encounter. John, have you seen the sun today, or have you been chatting up for 24 hours with your buds in Fortnite?
Look, I think if I'd never seen the sun, if I'd grown up just on Fortnite, I mean, why would you look at the real sun? It's pretty disappointing.
Yeah.
Just get
burns your eyes.
Just get exactly. Just get a carefully curated and rendered simulacrum of the sun. It's fascinating, isn't it? When we started this podcast, which is now 5 years ago.
Correct.
And I remember you first saying, talking about generations, as we've done a few times on the show, and you sort of said, and coming in soon, ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Generation Alpha? And I think that was kind of the first time I'd really heard about them. And, you know, they were still like as young as anyone was bothering to talk about at that stage, because it was all about millennials, and to an extent it was about Gen Zs, but even they were kind of just coming in. So then there were a few sort of futurist-minded people who were like, what about Gen Alpha? They'll be next.
Yeah.
And now here they fucking are. And they're about to become, the oldest of them are about to become adults, and they've never known the reality that you and I knew before poison rectangles in our pockets. They've never known a reality without Gmail and websites.
My poor son's brain's been rotted from Gmail, said one parent. He's been sending too many electronic mails.
Wikipedia. We didn't need Wikipedia. We just guessed, okay? It was years before I knew if women had different holes for peeing and babies. But I just lived with that uncertainty.
You could just talk into Gemini. Hey, Gemini. Hey, Gemini. That's me. That's me now as well. I'm pretty alpha myself.
Yeah.
So, John, what we want to speak about today is Generation Alpha. For anybody who doesn't know what Generation Alpha is, me and John, we are millennials. The generation that comes after us are Gen Z, which has occupied lots of the media in recent years. It's all been about Gen Z and the differences between us, millennials, and Gen Z. But lots of articles are coming out now this year, as you alluded to, because the eldest of Generation Alpha are turning 16. So Generation Alpha refers to people born roughly between 2010 and 2024, 25. So I think your daughter is just gonna scrape in as an alphatress.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Because I was. This is one of the questions I had for you, because I was looking at this today, and I think, you know, as with all of these things, they're kind of constructs, because human beings don't have like distinct mating seasons, so there's not really generations. But by some estimates, she scrapes into she would be like an elder.
Oh, okay.
Beta or beta.
So she'd be, okay. So she'll either be a super young alpha.
Exactly. I guess it makes sense, because I was on the cusp of, I'm a kind of elder millennial, and she'll be a kind of elder alpha, or possibly a young, possibly a kind of early beta. And there you go. So, a late alpha or a early beta. She's on the cusp, and that's fine with me. They both seem pretty bad, so I don't mind what it falls into.
Maybe you could say perhaps she's alpha with beta rising.
Exactly, she's beta rising. That's right. Yeah, far out. I mean,
So
I think she's born in the year of the dragon, and she's alpha with beta rising.
that's a serious conversation you're gonna have to have when you sit her down, just so she knows what she's in store for.
Here are your traits. You don't have to decide what your personality is. Just look at this chart.
So basically, one of the key differences, because I was looking up, okay, so Generation Z is very online. So what are kind of the different key differences between Generation Z and Generation Alpha? And so a quite simple framing that I heard was that us millennials, we discovered the internet. Gen Z grew up during the smartphone revolution, because you have to keep in mind. So if you've got Generation Alpha, like starting in 2010, the iPhone comes out in 2007. So by the time these alphas are being born, then that's already 3 years into the smartphone revolution.
Far out.
So Gen Alpha is basically born directly into this kind of smartphone iPad world. Everybody has heard of what they call like iPad kids. So that's really this generation, because when they come out, it's 2010. So these devices are are around. The swipeable screen, the swipeable black mirror is around. And I read a lot that Generation Alpha is the first generation that learned to swipe before they learned to speak.
God almighty. That puts a knot in your stomach, doesn't it? We're in a dark sci-fi world. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not pleased with it, but if I give Ines my iPhone now, sometimes she gets hold of it and she doesn't really know what she's doing, but she's kind of got some ideas that would be pretty easy to, because it's so intuitive. And she's she's just mashing it with her fingers and she's moving stuff around and then it moves. And so if I'm not careful, she'd be swiping before she spoke. But it's just, at the moment, I just restrict her to 5 minutes of watching Spot on Sunday and that's it.
Watch this lovable dog.
Exactly, yeah. And even then, it's funny, actually, one of the things I was going to mention is the pace of kind of technology that makes you, I mean, seeing somebody who's born into a new generation who is kind of being raised on the values of the previous generation. So when I read Spot, I mean, Spot's already kind of dated, but I still read it because I basically choose books for Ines based on what I want to read for nostalgic reasons. So I'll read a Spot and there'll be like, rotary phones, and there'll be, people reading newspapers. There won't be a mobile anywhere in the book, or even a desktop computer, because it's just kind of depicting this world that probably ceased existing in the 90s. But it's kind of, she's looking at these things, and some of them she'll be, if she were to get older and look at that book, she'd be like, I don't even know what these are. Like, I've never seen a rotary phone outside of a Spot book, or I've never seen, an old man reading a newspaper, except for maybe my grandfather. But or even like a kind of big television set, these kinds of things, a big kind of cathode ray television set. And then for Generation Alpha, it's like, somebody was telling me the other day that their friend was saying, oh, I'm raising my kid to be like, I'm reading all this stuff about how to teach them maths. And I'm like, fucking don't worry about that. That kid's AI is going to be doing that. Just teach that kid how to live in a bunker and grow tomatoes or something. That's what's going to happen.
Just teach that kid how to defend its bunker.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what it's really going to want to be doing.
Just make it watch Terminator 2. That's all you need to basically do.
So they said another way of framing Gen Alpha is Gen Alpha was born directly into the algorithm. So if you think about the explosion of algorithms since 2010, so perhaps us and Gen Z, I mean, obviously we're all in algorithms now, but even Gen Z perhaps spend a bit more time searching for things that they were interested themselves in on the internet, things like that, like going to search engines and things like that, like this. And Generation Alpha is the first generation where more and more content is just getting fed to them through feeds. It's algorithmically generated. So they're not necessarily making as active a decision to go and, I saw this interesting thing over here and now I'm going to search for it. Like I saw this interesting thing out in the world and now I'm going to go into a search engine and search for it. It's more like they're more plugged into their devices. The algorithm knows them and it says, what about this? What about this? And also they're this generation that's growing up with an endless scroll of, you know, they've only known endless feeds. You know, the endless feeds of algorithmically generated content that's fed. And because they're now turning.
Are there any good things about them?
There's loads of good things. There's loads of good things about them, which we're going to get to.
I mean, you know, that's just reflective of my own anachronistic values. But it does. I mean, that's a fascinating point you make, because the algorithm, you know, confronting or encountering the world for the first time in circumstances where it is kind of already curated to you in a way that you can't even see or understand completely is a whole different ballgame, isn't it? Like, think about us going into, you know, it was the 90s, you'd go into Video Easy, you'd see a video, then you'd go, oh, what's this one over here? And it's just, you know, it wasn't for you. It was for like the 50-year-old man who was browsing in the same part of the video store, but you'd still see it. And that's just a kind of microcosm of like, you were selecting things consciously from within a uncurated or relatively uncurated environment. That's just not part of their lives. And I wonder what that does to you. Like, does it kind of make you a narcissist without you really meaning to be? Or does it, you know, does it make you just feel like you're the main character in a way that you can't really escape?
Well, one of the other interesting things reading about Generation Alpha, which I can totally see, thinking about how I've seen kids interact with the internet, younger Gen Alpha kids, is that we started using Facebook, you and I, and then you have Gen Z that starts using Snapchat and perhaps some other social medias, YouTube and things, and Instagram and things like this. And Generation Alpha do a lot of their kind of socializing, not necessarily in what we would think of as traditional social media platforms, but actually what we might associate as being games. So you're talking about Roblox, Fortnite, these kinds of places where actually they're going and interacting with friends and other people in these kind of digital, these sort of 3D digital environments. So, you know, we're sort of used to, I'm chatting with everybody on TikTok and Instagram, but they're like, actually, I go on a Roblox and I'm in a 3D funky world that is very immersive. And that's how I'm having social experiences with friends and whatnot from school. So it's this kind of, it's sort of more socializing through these platforms. Roblox is kind of crazy. It's I hear that word all the time, and I remember reading a lot about Robux, but it looks very much just like quite a simple 3D world game, but you can build games within it and join other people's games, and kids absolutely love it. And you can spend Robux in there, which you can buy for real money.
Right. Okay. I'm having a look at it now because I barely know what it is. I mostly know what it is from like compilations of people acting weird on the internet that I watch, or like people harassing avatars, that kind of stuff.
It's very much like that. It's very sort of avatar-y, and it just looks like a world that's very designed for a younger audience. But apparently there can be some older people in there as well, which is also a concern for some parents. You hear that about Roblox in the media.
Normal older people?
Just very normal older men that want to play in those worlds.
Just really into world building.
They're just older men.
You can dress as a cactus or a Lego figure.
That's a defining feature of Gen Alpha.
Capacity. The main thing is the capacity to dress as a cactus. Nowadays you just have to imagine being a succulent, but not anymore. There you go. Okay.
Yeah, and
So
so
they're on the
Roblox,
algorithm.
Fortnite, they're on the algorithm, and they're also on YouTube a load in a way that, I mean, obviously we're on YouTube, but I guess they grow up. They've basically been born into this world where the internet is just something that they don't think of as being separated from
Yeah.
themselves. And I guess Gen Z are like this to an extent, but Generation Alpha is going to be this generation that are just born. There's iPads
Yeah.
everywhere. The other thing is that they're the children of millennials, and
Yeah.
millennials themselves are
Yeah.
very
Right.
digitally savvy and digitally native. Our
Yeah.
generation is having these kids, and we're on the phones and we're on the iPads and we're interacting with the
Yeah.
internet. So imagine if you watched your father just
Yeah.
be like doing his podcast,
Yeah.
streaming on Kick, going down streets in
Totally.
Miami and just punching
Like
people out for
Peter
for
Maloney
Kick
just
clout.
running over people in his Cybertruck.
Yeah. And you'd
Yeah.
see that and be like, well, there's no difference between the internet and the real world. It's this
No.
sort of weird, sort of globulous thing that's just all becoming one.
Totally. And you know, you're right that like the arrival of the internet, which we saw, you know, we kind of are the last generation, I guess, to have this sense of, or maybe elder Gen Zs is a bit of a overlap there, but the last generation to see a world before the internet and to have a memory of that. But that's in a way kind of, I mean, it's significant, but it's no more significant, I would say, than that shift of everyone having the smartphone in their pocket and the development of algorithms and so on. Because that's really what, it's one thing to be like, oh, I remember being in 1998, you know, on a website and emailing people and stuff. But like your life is fundamentally pretty intact, and you might be using the internet as a way to do things, but you're kind of still, it's a means to an end, and the way that you actually live is pretty standard, pretty comparable to pre-internet. And you might be even meeting people online, but it's all with a view to doing stuff in real life. Whereas like for Generation Alpha, it might not be. It might be like you have friends at school, but about 50% of the time you see them in physical form, and the other 50% you just see them on Roblox or whatever, and you kind of don't really care. They're your friends. You chat to them. You can hear them.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like that, as you say. It's just a fusion of virtual and actual reality. Yeah, far out.
They're also going to be the first AI native generation. So this is obviously going to be a huge thing that's going to completely change how education works, how they think about what they want to do with their lives. When you think about how the job market is going to change based on what AI can do for us. So jobs that used to require a human and used to require somebody to go to university, learn certain things. If those jobs aren't there, this is the first generation that's going to start going, oh, that's all kind of taken care of now. So I have to think of something else. I have to think of something else to do. And just they will, I mean, again, just imagine that from quite an early age, you could talk to a computer in natural language like we can do since ChatGPT. You can just ask a computer questions. You can just get it to write papers for you. So this is such a, I mean, and now of course you can have kids just talk to a computer. Yeah, the computer understands them and just talks back. You just, hey Gemini, hey ChatGPT, I just want to talk to you, and they're going to be the first people where that's not something odd. It's just normal.
No, that's right, and it's so radically different from Google. I mean, it's radically different from what was going on when we started our podcast. Actually, it's also recent, but I had my first teaching of my first class of the semester on Friday, and I had to say to my students, who are a little bit older, they're not quite Generation Alpha, but they're kind of younger Gen Z, I guess, a lot of them. And I said, so the way that we're approaching this is you can use AI to draft you like to prepare, but you're not supposed to use it to write your essay. And I basically said to them, look, obviously I can't really police that. Like you guys will have your way of using AI or not using it or whatever, and that's kind of up to you. And I sort of had to say, well, look, when I studied this kind of stuff, I got a lot of benefit from
a lot of joy.
a lot of joy from writing. And that
Yeah.
taught me how to think and how to frame arguments. And just whatever you do, just don't use AI in a way that's going to rob you of that benefit. But it was kind of like, I felt so old. I felt like I was talking to them across this kind of big divide because, I remember just sort of being confronted with a blank page on Word.
Yes.
And kind of having to type out, okay, here's my introduction, here's my second paragraph.
Yeah.
They're just not going to have to do that if they don't want to. And why would they want to? Like they've got more interesting things to do, most of them. I mean, I was, and then I'd have to print it out and drop in a physical essay in a little Dropbox. And now what's going to happen in, this is kind of the first year we've actually even admitted to them that it's okay to use AI because we just have no real choice. And now in 10 years, it's going to be like, what are we even doing anymore? But I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. And, I don't even know. Like, it's hard. It's getting harder to advise even them of like, what should I be doing? And I'm like, well, yeah, when I was starting out as a lawyer, I sat in a room and read emails that were part of a big piece of litigation to try and see whether a particular topic was mentioned in any of these emails.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting there for hours doing that. Nobody's going to be doing that even now, like let alone 5 years time. Wild.
You inquired earlier, John, about some of the positives. So we don't want to keep it all negative because we want these beautiful young people to have a ton of hope. They're gonna.
Totally.
I want them to save this messed up world on fire. So
Exactly.
So of course they're going to be the most technologically fluent generation ever. Yeah. Technology is their natural environment in which they swim, in which they grew up, in which they exist. So one of the things that experts have said is they have earlier creative development because they naturally edit videos, design avatars in all these online worlds. They might build in-game worlds. They can remix
design
memes.
apps.
This is the thing, isn't it? We're already seeing, you and I in our personal lives and in the podcast are creating memes and video and AI videos and AI songs in a way that we couldn't even 2 years ago because you needed to understand Photoshop. And now, I sent you in the week, I changed one of the signs in the aisle of Discount Chemist Warehouse to be very rude, and I did it in 2 seconds. I went into Discount Chemist Warehouse in Australia and I was in there and
that I was completely hoodwinked by it.
And I looked down the aisle of Discount Chemist Warehouse and they have all the different product types, and it said, it said vitamins, it said slimming, it said hair care. And I just took a photo of the one that said hair care, looking right down the aisle. And this must have taken 30 seconds. I took a photo. I went into Nano Banana and I just put in, change the thing that says hair products to anal bleaching. And I didn't even have to tell it, keep the font, anything else. It understood. I just said, change hair care to anal bleaching. And it went blip, 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 and spat it out. And it just looks like Discount Chemist Warehouse has an anal bleaching section of their thing. And I sent it to everybody. And that would have just been a thing that it would have taken me so long to get that convincing in Photoshop. 100%. And I would have had to have done it. I would have had to obviously go home to Photoshop to do it. I did this on my phone while I was still standing in Discount Chemist Warehouse. Yeah. So this is what Generation Alpha can do, is just
totally.
If you can think it can become real.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you look at the designs that we put on Instagram when the podcast started, and the kind of technology that we were having to kind of fuse together different apps to sort of make something work. So you'd get a kind of mock-up app to put an image that you'd created in a different app into a particular fake setting, and then you'd superimpose your face or whatever. None of that's necessary now. And in fact, like all of these apps that used to be sort of independent of each other are just falling into this huge basket of things that you can ask AI to do. And, you know, whether it's kind of, I don't know, like anything, it's whether it's numerical or language based or visual, it's all kind of in the one spot and it's all instantaneous, which is, yeah, I guess will mean like on one level they're expending less effort, but on the other hand, they're able to expend more effort, I guess, in the kind of imaginative space, or they're able to just kind of push it further because the base level is that much higher. That you're like, well, yeah, anyone could put anal bleaching on a Chemist Warehouse sign. What am I, John Maloney Jr. gonna do to make my mark?
so I'm not like chuggy Uncle Al.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could think of it like this as well, which is kind of interesting. I'm just thinking of this as I speak to you now. 5 years ago, if I'd come up with the idea of like that stupid sign, I would have just gone, "Oh, that would be funny," but I'm not going to do it because I can't be arsed learning Photoshop and doing it. So it just wouldn't. That would just never.
Exactly.
That would never see the light of day. And similarly, like if a kid had an idea for a song, or a kid had an idea, you would just go, "Oh, I've got this really interesting idea for a thing," but obviously I'm not going to learn music production.
Yeah.
So, but now you can just go, "Oh, I have an idea and I can make it real." And so what does, you know, obviously that the barrier to entry becomes very, very low.
Yeah.
And that skill set is all those skill sets are becoming devalued very quickly, which is causing its own set of societal problems. But you can just you could just be a creative person, but you've never had the technical ability or the money to pay somebody with technical ability. And now you can go, I can think it become real.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the who's that guy? Who's the guy with long hair who was like the producer for Jay-Z, and he's a kind of guru in hip hop production, and he's a sort of weird looking white hippie character.
Oh, yeah. Yes, of course I am. Rick Rubin,
yeah. I mean, you know, he doesn't need to give ideas to people anymore on execution. He could just say, well, I've got an idea on how this would be better. So I'll just put my voice through a filter and suddenly I won't sound like a kind of strange old Rick Rubin anymore. I'll sound like a pop star and I'll have all these ideas. I mean, he could do that himself, you know, rather than kind of delegating, as well as the fact that, you know, if you were Jay-Z, you'd be like, well, why would I ask Rick Rubin? I'll just ask Claude what it thinks.
What does this need, Claude? What kind of the vibe's off, Claude? Can you tell me why the vibe's off? And Claude will go, absolutely. I can absolutely tell you why the vibe's off.
Yeah. I've been scraping the whole internet, which includes hours of Rick Rubin. So you're in luck.
I have as well here, Gen Alpha John. This could be either a negative or a positive, but they'll have global awareness from childhood because they're growing up exposed to global culture. This is also this thing where everything is just becoming a little bit the same. But yeah, you know, this is a fun meme that's kicking around in the last few weeks. Is people are saying I'm going through my Chinese era right now, which is like people that are getting really into China, and that's potentially a thing that a younger person is going to have at least some awareness of China because of this silly meme. Whereas you or I growing up just wouldn't have had no exposure to memes and ideas, and we just weren't aware of places. And if you even think of somebody like IShowSpeed, who a lot of Gen Alphas absolutely love. IShowSpeed is in a different country every day, and these kids are watching him in all of these far-flung places, a lot of them like developing nations and whatever, and they're going, oh, I'm aware of these places and I can actually see them. I can see this person that I love interacting with them.
Yeah, it's true. True. I mean, if we had a kid, an exchange student or a kid who'd moved to Australia from France or Japan or wherever, it would be this kind of, you'd be like, what is it even like there? What do you guys do? What do you have instead of Wendy's or whatever? And now you just, there's no need to ask any of those questions because you can just watch IShowSpeed walking through the streets. But also, it does kind of make it's sort of that, long-standing shift towards sort of global village mentality where we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago on the show, where in 1996, because we talked about it as, 30 years ago today. I didn't know. I wouldn't have known who Mamdani was. I didn't even
Yeah.
know New York City had a mayor. I didn't know what that
Yeah.
meant. So, whereas now people are people's sense of the world and their sense of like what my political priorities are, what my emotional energy is being expended on. It's not just about what's in my physical midst, obviously. It could be stuff that's going on around the world that's just very much a part of my world because I'm on the internet half of my life, whatever, which has all kinds of implications. And now, of course, you've got this kind of strange clash between old and new where influencers in Dubai are being confronted with good old-fashioned war in the Middle East, and they're like running out of hotels and things, which is a strange spectacle to behold. But that whole idea of kind of your mental, your priorities, your mental load being kind of very much disconnected or not necessarily at all connected to what's going on around you, what's happening in your street or in your town or whatever. And I wonder, will people still have regional accents in 50 years' time? Why would why would a Generation Alpha kid have a thick Yorkshire accent? I don't know. Probably wouldn't.
Yeah, well, I guess that would, and the question there, of course, would be how long is it going to take until kids are spending so long in the machine that they're getting more accent cues from their online environments.
I think there's definitely a different accent now, subtly, but in Australia from, like you can tell someone's age by their accent often because, they're a little bit less likely to speak in a kind of broad Australian accent than somebody my age or older would be, I think, because they're just getting heaps of American piped into their ears. And it's a bit uncool to just be kind of, a kind of parochial weirdo who speaks in a really broad Australian accent. So that sometimes they sort of speak in this Australian accent, which is it's like they have chopped off all the stuff that they can without being accused of putting on an American accent. So, they'll sort of tighten up all the vowels and stuff, but they'll still say car instead of car, but everything else sounds a bit American.
Another thing you can be excited for your child and potentially children, John, is Generation Alpha is much more likely to have an entrepreneurial mindset. And I mean, you can already tell this. It was obvious with Gen Z, and now it's going to be even more obvious with Generation Alpha that you and I were told, go to school, go to university, get a job, work for the man, get in the system, you fucking drone. And now kids, Generation Alpha's like, hey, guess what? I can fucking build an app with Claude Code, and then I can market it on all these social media. I can market my app in Fortnite and Roblox, and I can start charging people Robux for my in-game experience. I can start charging people for my app that I built, and I can start collecting money, and I don't need to rely on middlemen anymore because I don't need to hire a developer. I don't, all the jobs that you used to need to actually get humans to do, people are going to start. Generation Alpha can start just getting a team of AI agents and whatnot. And they're thinking like, man, why would I work for a dusty old company when I can just have my own company? Because I've seen all my influencer friends in my old doing this exact thing. I want to do it.
Yeah. Undoubtedly. Like, in a way, that kind of idea was already on the way out when we got into the workforce, but it was still pushed on us because of our boomer parentage. This kind of I mean, even for millennials, it's much less common to kind of go into a big company and just get to spend 30 or 40 years there and then get a gold watch and off you go at 55 or whatever. But so they're sort of slightly more entrepreneurial, slightly more aware of kind of bouncing around between different opportunities depending on their skills. But then that whole structure is going to go sideways surely pretty soon, especially because, I mean, added to that, people are able to work remotely, so they don't feel a kind of, sense of place in a particular company. They don't necessarily engage with the same group of people every day on a kind of 9 to 5 basis, the way that people in our generation still might have in office jobs. And they just, they don't have to put up with this idea, which actually is, I think is great, because most people it doesn't serve. Sure, there's going to be a few people who are like, you know what, was born in the wrong time. I just want to be an accountant and do like base level, not even particularly interesting accounting. I just want to fill out forms and do calculations, and there's just not going to be any room for those people anymore, unfortunately.
I think another thing that one thing that I'm particularly jealous of about Generation Alpha is the way that they will have tailored, distilled education that will cut out all the fat that we had to put up with from an education system that I think when we look back on it, they will just go, look, we get that was what you guys were working with, but it is just crazy that you guys went and sat in these rooms and had to learn this stuff that, maybe, I don't know, the percentage of stuff in the 12, 13 years that we were at school, the amount of that information that you forget or was completely unnecessary because they're trying to broadly just educate everybody. You had kids who were terrible at maths, had no aptitude for it, and had no need to really learn it. Those kids end up just sitting in a class, being bored out of their mind and being told that they're dumb. And then, we just learned, just sitting in classrooms for hours and hours and hours. And now, if you were to take, who knows how much education or what type of education is going to be necessary for this next generation. But if you were to just say, look, I want to take a kid and I want them to have a well-rounded education that's sort of based on their interests, and I want all the basics. Yeah. I mean, the speed at which you could get this done without them getting completely bored, and the way that you could cater to their individual interests to encourage learning. I just think, man, I would have killed. And imagine how much more time you would have. Yeah. They talk about the fact that this Generation Alpha, they're on their screens all day or whatever. But, I'm just imagining a future where you could spend like 2 hours as a kid in front of some sort of digital learning experience that's tailored for you. Maybe your friends are in one of the classes, but then the other two are just for you at your level and what you need. Yeah. And then you just fucking out. And then everybody says, okay, that's enough screens, because we've all realized that screens aren't everything. And then you just spend 5 or 6 hours riding your bike. I don't know.
On Roblox, obviously, not
on Roblox, obviously. That's exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be 2 hours of actual learning on screens, and then you just switch to Roblox, digging,
fun screen,
catching tadpoles in a Roblox creek.
Exactly. Yeah, traipsing along a railway track with your knapsack on Roblox. It's true. I mean, to an extent that I wonder about that, because that has been ripe for disruption, obviously, for some time. And I was talking to someone today who's an academic at Monash who was saying, years ago they came up with this idea of kind of online short courses and things and ways of, obviously it's not new, this idea that you could get a learning experience which is functionally just as valuable. You learn the skills and, you learn from the same people who are kind of experts in their field and whatever. And maybe the degree or the qualification that you get at the end has a different name. But, why should that matter? But it sort of hasn't really taken off, at least till now, as people I think initially hoped, which just partly just exposed the fact that it wasn't about knowledge. It was about kind of social capital of having a fancy degree with a certain name from a certain university and having a kind of social network of people who sat in that same class with you and stuff. If you just knew that stuff, that wasn't kind of the point, which is absurd really, because obviously it is meant to be the point of education to actually have that capacity. But I assume that's the kind of, you would think, the last gasp of those. Like if they have to rely on sort of oldie worldy prestige, that's not going to last that long, because the people who really regard that prestige as valuable are aging out, and people who are younger who are going to start running these companies that are employing these people are just not going to give a fuck. They're just going to say, look, I don't care if you learn this online. Like, obviously, why wouldn't you do that? What I care about is, like, do you know how to do this job? And so, that kind of idea of the sort of old school bigwig institutions is probably going to die out, which is really interesting. And again, probably a good thing, I think, partly because so many more people are going to have access to knowledge and to opportunities that come with having that knowledge.
Speaking of knowledge, we should talk about definitely one of the defining features that we absolutely love about Generation Alpha, and that's brain rot. And I want to get deep into your favorite YouTube channel, John, Skibidi Toilet. And you always said to me, "Hey, let me show you this, Al. You're absolutely gonna love it."
Yeah.
It's a three-dimensional short video where there's a bunch of surveillance cameras and a man's head in a toilet. There's rapid editing, loud sound effects, absurd humor, layered memes, and you're absolutely, as a 43-year-old man, you're gonna absolutely love it. So yeah, they're this generation that really get into. I mean, the Skibidi toilet thing. I remember when I first saw those videos, I was like, wow, this feels like something different. I don't understand this at all.
Yeah.
And it feels like this hyper stimulated generation. I think Skibidi Toilet skews fairly heavily male. But for anybody that's not seen Skibidi Toilet, it's essentially what I just described. It's kind of 3D. It's actually built with a game engine, I believe. And it's this like dystopian world of heads in toilets and surveillance cameras. And there were these one very short videos on YouTube, and Generation Alpha just absolutely ate them up. And
it's a kind of humor. It's like sort of basic absurdist humor, isn't it? Where it's like, oh, your name is Joey McToilet and you run the toilet army or whatever. It's just like this kind of, and then there'll be, like, just, let's make it so that you live in a shoe that's inside Air Force One, or so, like just this kind of like word scramble version of absurdism, really, which I guess, I can see why that appeals to young people, because they're just kind of getting their head around that way of being funny. But it does have that kind of manic quality that you just associate with someone whose brain has been hooked up to algorithms for so long that they can't handle a sitcom that gives them 4 jokes a minute. That is just piss weak. They can't sit around for half an hour for 10 jokes. That's it's got to be like the whole time.
I was amazed when I realized that the whole Italian brain rot thing was just being eaten up by Generation Alpha, because I was watching it going, I kind of appreciate this, how absurd and weird it is and how this world is creating itself. And then I remember just seeing videos on YouTube of people sitting kids down, really young kids, and going and showing them the clips, and the kids knew like every single character. And then friends of mine and then what started happening was that because I don't think nobody owns the intellectual property of the Italian brain rot characters, because there's just these memes that were built. So then you could just make T-shirts and toys of the Italian brain rot characters, and so suddenly you were seeing these toys that are just aimed at kids, and I was just thinking, this is this insane, crazy meme of absurdity. Generation Alpha are really the ones who are eating it up.
Yeah, I saw a kid at the pool the other day. He was probably only like 6, and he had a Italian brain rot T-shirt on with Gabajucci or whatever the hell, and I thought
Tung tung sahur.
Tung 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 sahur. And I thought, man, he's pretty young to be getting into that, but I guess that's the way it is. I mean, that's the thing. Like they can now you could just make your own episodes of Italian brain rot if you wanted to. You don't have to sit around for a weekly episode. You can make your own merch probably. So that's exciting. That's a positive.
Another thing that's going to affect you a bit, John, as well, is parenting differences, because Gen Alpha is being parented mostly by millennials.
Right.
So they approach parenting quite differently. So we're talking about gentle parenting,
Yeah.
mental health awareness, and there's just like a lot of discussion around screen time. So it'll be interesting to see the kind of gentle parenting thing and the mental health awareness. Have you had a discussion with your partner yet about, will you use the word no around your child? Or is that word banned around your child?
That ship has sailed, unfortunately, when she started sticking her hand near the power board. I can't have you're 14 months old. I can't have a conversation with you about electricity. So I'm just going to shout at you. Yeah, it's interesting that. I mean, there's kind of two things going on, which I think could, I'm sure there are different views on this, but could create a kind of perfect storm. One is that there's more single children, and even if even if you're not an only child, you certainly got, the days of people coming from having 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 siblings are that's a vanishingly rare scenario. And I did hear someone, a friend of mine who's also got a kid about the same age as Ines, and she said that the woman who runs the childcare that her kid goes to was saying you can tell with the older kids when they're only children, she reckons, because they're just kind of slightly less capable of like adapting to, things, to someone else taking control of a situation or their plans being thwarted or whatever. They're just a bit less. Whereas like you obviously get into the habit of doing that particularly if you're like a younger sibling, you start to play a game, but you're well aware that it could just like something could happen.
Yeah.
And the game stops or becomes a different game. And you just have to live with that, and whereas if you are an only child who's been gentle parented, then it's straight off to the psychiatrist as soon as that happens to you.
A total meltdown that you're not getting your own way for the first time in your entire life.
Just no resilience. And, I think there's obviously kind of a spectrum of approaches even within that. But it is kind of fascinating to see to kind of think about what that would look like, a generation which is disproportionately only children who have been gentle parented. I mean, you don't have to be too cynical to see that could have some potential downsides. But not only that, people who've been gentle parented, are raised as only children, and are exposed to a world which is largely catering to them because of an algorithm or a set of algorithms. Like, they're probably not going to be that resilient when it comes to unexpected turns of events, or having to compromise or whatever. So, that'll be an interesting thing. On the other hand, I think that kind of global mindset that you talked about earlier is relevant. Like they're less likely to be kind of bigoted or probably to kind of bully other kids in a way that might have been more common when we were younger, just because that's not cool. I, for one, am very opposed to, like, I'll go down to the local bookstore and there'll just be, like there'll be the usual books, Roald Dahl and The Hungry Caterpillar, whatever. And there'll be just shelves and shelves of books with titles like Softness is Your Strength and You Have Integrity and and Your Body is Beautiful. And I just think, I'm not going to be showing Ines any of that crap. Which, I mean, I do think that's kind of there's a whole episode in that, because I think that whole trend is very prominent, and I wonder, like, to what extent that is actually making any difference to kids, or is that just something we're doing because millennial parents want to feel as though they're kind of giving their kids the right kind of moral instruction? And is it a kind of substitute for, the more widespread religious education that people used to go like, well, my kid will learn about sharing in Sunday school, or like he'll hear about some Bible stories or whatever. Whereas now nobody's doing that. So instead we give our kids books about like being nice to the strange looking kid at school or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's all very sort of didactic and very on the nose. It's not like, let's tell an interesting story which has some themes in that way. It's like you're explicitly being told how to behave, basically, in a lot of those books. And the prose, the quality of the prose and the illustrations is really secondary to that messaging.
I just got back from 4 days in China, and I can tell you with confidence that the gentle parenting message has not got over there. We saw a lot of very moist-eyed children getting absolutely chewed out by their parents for a slight infraction, and I had a lot of respect for that.
Yeah. Yeah, they're going to be kicking our asses in a few years' time.
We could go on and on, John. I'm sure we'll revisit Generation Alpha. That's already close to an hour, and we could go on and on. We will obviously return to Generation Alpha very, very, very soon as they continue to evolve and change the world and contribute to this big, beautiful thing that we call Earth and humanity that we're all spinning around on a globe of right now. But it's very, very not cumbersome at all.
This crazy old thing we call life. Yeah.
There's currently around 2 billion generation by 2025. 2 billion Generation Alpha globally. Think about that. That's they're likely the largest generation in history. So
there you go.
So we're going to be hearing about them very, very.
One big skibidi toilet.
That is one huge skibidi toilet. Thank you so much. Beautiful. And everybody, if you've enjoyed the show, it'd be great if you could share it with a friend or a family member. We always love it when people share the podcast with people around them. It really helps to grow this community. So if you have 2 seconds right now, it'd be great if you pause the podcast, hit the share button and said, hey, do you know what's happening with Generation Alpha? Well, this is going to absolutely help.
These guys kind of do.
Thank you so much, everybody, and we can't wait to see you next week.
The podcast.